All right, everyone. Welcome to the Data Center News Show. I am your host, Amy Palvido. I am the CEO of Facilimax and also the CEO of Red River Infrastructure, where Red River Infrastructure is a data center developer and Facilimax is a digital twin AI platform for the data center industry. And I'm also the chairwoman of the U.S. PropTech Council. So this is my show that I have every week. I usually have a panel of 4 or 5 people that join, but as you know, things happen. It's the week before Thanksgiving. People are actually just really super busy. But I wanted to not miss today's show. So here I am. You get yours truly. We're going to be talking about AI factories. Kind of what is the difference between an AI factory and a data center? And I will say that my company builds AI factories, so I can kind of give you a little insight there. Hopefully my friend Josh will show up, but we've had people kind of bail today because they're catching flights, they got customer calls. It is a very busy time in the data center industry, that is for sure. But let me start with, what is an AI factory? Like, you might see it in the news. Google will come out and talk about, hey, we're building this AI factory here. And what is the difference between that and technically a traditional data center? And a lot of it has to do with the infrastructure for an AI factory is different than what a data center typically is. So a data center has typically got the processing power of the servers are typically what they're called CPUs. They're just normal processing, like back way back in the day. It's stuff like that AWS started originally building, which were CPUs, right? And they're just general web hosting and other things like that the SaaS companies were using. It was nothing that had or required any sort of AI compute. And I would say a good portion of the data centers that exist today are, 99% of them are all CPUs. They're all like non-AI. But this new movement to AI requires a different level of computing power. And so now data centers, like, for instance, CoreWeave, are being built just for AI processing. That's all they do. So you're not gonna host your website there. You're not going to, store your data there. It is there to train models. It is there to do AI inferencing, which is just a way to, test out new models for enterprises, those kinds of things. So an AI factory is built just for that specific purpose. It requires much more power. It requires a different type of cooling than a normal data center does. And so we'll talk about that here. I'll give you the stories of what I'm going through as a newer data center developer and what I'm learning, because I'm learning a lot. And then how this has really kind of changed the industry. AI is not going away. There is no such thing as an AI bubble. I really wish people would stop talking about that, because that's just ridiculous. AI is here to stay. It's not going anywhere. I think some AI companies are overvalued? Sure. But it doesn't mean the industry as a whole is overvalued. There was a .com bubble, but the internet is still here. So, is OpenAI overvalued? Probably, comparatively to its revenue, but we don't know what it's in its sales pipeline. I mean, maybe. And there'll be AI companies that might get overvalued, but to call AI a bubble doesn't make sense to me at all. So let's talk about where the data center of the future goes. I have been hosting this show for, I think, a year now, and had the great luxury of having wonderful guests come on the show and kind of talk through what's happening in the industry. And as I kind of think back, this is the pre-Thanksgiving show. So if I think back over the past year, kind of who I'm grateful for, it would be, everybody who's kind of come along this show, been regular, and then, and I'm grateful to the industry for, kind of accepting the show, which is really, really cool. And then also just if I look back over the year, just the amount of change that has happened in this industry just in the past year is insane in the membrane. Like, I can't imagine, is somebody a new person walking into the industry today versus even 2 years ago. I mean, you can get into this industry today and you'll probably be level set with everybody who's been in the industry for a long time, because it is changing so fast and it doesn't even look like itself anymore. So it is a good time to join the industry. I'll put a plug in for that. Like, especially, like, we need technicians, we need people to work in the industry. We're short. So if you want or ever considered getting a job in the data center industry, do it now, man. Make hay while the sun shines. It's a great time to get in. All right, so let's talk about how it's changing. So AI is changing the industry, partly what I've talked about on the workforce side for sure. Let's talk about power. So at most data center developments now are, obviously they needed their compute up yesterday. And so what's hampering them is power. And the lack of available power. Of course, that's in the news like almost every day. But what is happening is the most folks are doing on-site power generation. They just can't wait around for something to be available, right? I mean, there's this general sense in the world of enterprises that there's this FOMO and thought of being left behind, but they can't deploy AI solutions because there is no compute available to do it with. And so there are a lot of people now trying to figure out, okay, how do we do smaller models? What do we do? How do we deploy, not having to wait for the large centers to come online? So I think there will be this continued movement. I don't think it goes away at all. I think, figuring out how to build for AI at a data center is going to enable a business to succeed. It's going to be the differentiator initially. Like, if you're able to deploy AI and you've got compute time that you've bought that you can use, that becomes a very valuable resource to you as an industry or as an enterprise, because you can do things that your competitors can't. And so if you do not have the access to compute time, because I will say vacancy in the data center industry is less than 2%. So if you don't have that ability to get that compute time, it's going to be hurtful to you and your profit and your bottom line for sure. And so I think these AI factories, as they come more and more online, they'll get leased out quickly. I think it's a really a new way of positioning in the data center market where the AI factories can be huge or they can be small. I don't think it really matters. I think you're going to see both kinds of deployments happen across the United States. We're working on both. So I think it does kind of lend itself there. And we have to figure out the power situation. So let's talk about it. So in Texas, where I'm based in Austin, Texas, ERCOT has, as of, a week or so ago, has 200 gigawatts. Let me repeat that. 200 gigawatts of power requests. And people want 200 gigawatts that's not currently being supplied by the electric grid. Today, there's requests for 200 gigawatts more. And so as you think about the massive amount of electrical infrastructure that is needed, and transmission lines and transformers and electrical equipment and all these things, taking Texas as a microcosm of that, you can see how the thing exacerbates across the United States, across the world, right? we only have so many electricians. We only have so many electrical transformers. We only have so much electrical equipment in general. And so that this one constraint, there's many constraints, but this one constraint is slowing down technological, that's such a hard word, technological advancements across the US, across the world. I mean, and it is one of the things that we are trying to figure out. So obviously folks are talking about nuclear. Most people are doing on-site power generation. I will say the fastest path to power is doing on-site power generation in an area where you can get hooked up to natural gas. In Texas, most definitely. Pennsylvania, other places that have lots of natural gas lines, that is your fastest path to power. So if you can do on-site power generation and then you can co-locate a data center next to that, that's about as quickly as you're going to get anything up and running. Unless it's a smaller deployment, those might go a little bit faster. So, which is okay. And if smaller deployments are great, right? So, but if you're doing something 100 megawatts or over, you're years out, and that's okay. You're years out partly because you have to build the thing, and then you're gonna have to do all the road development. I mean, I'm an old developer. I mean, nobody can build a hotel like in a day. So you have to, it's the same kind of concept. It's like data centers take years to build. Okay. And so you're going to have to coincide the build of the data center with the build of the power plant. Now, if you're going to go fast, hyperscalers are and other data center developers are willing to, build while the power plant's being built so that they can kind of come online at the same time. As long as they feel, satisfied with who's doing the power and they're secure in that power story, they're willing to do that. That's what it's going to take to get stuff built faster. The amount of power that is needed at an AI factory, obviously we're talking, you can do a small deployment of 5 to 10 megawatts, and that's great. And you can have GPUs that will do at that scale. And that's probably one enterprise. That's what one enterprise needs. And that's awesome. And you can do those. The larger AI factories are, you can do gigawatts of AI factories if you want to. And we do both ends. So, we have one site that's 2 gigawatts of power. And then we also have another site that's, 10 megawatts. So it just depends on the use case and what that looks like. But the 10 megawatts is going a whole lot faster. Exponentially faster. And that's partly because there's this, if you look at any sort of data center deployment or any sort of power connection, which is everything that you're trying to hold up, there's usually a line that a power producer will have. And in Texas, it's around 10 megawatts. In other places, it's less. And other places, it's more. So it's where's the line of how much can I go with the least amount of friction and getting connected to the grid, and what is that line? And you have to figure it out. Even if in the state of Texas, the large load interconnect is at about 75 megawatts. That's what it's at. That's anything above 75 megawatts they consider large load. You go to Ohio, it's like 20 or 25, so it's less. But I will say, even though in Texas it's 75 megawatts, there's really, even between 10 megawatts and 75, there's still friction. And there's still things that you have to go through and hoops you have to jump through to get to there. Because technically 10 megawatts is a lot of power. A lot of people we talk gigawatts and little 10 megawatts, but it's still a lot of power. And so you get less friction at 10 megawatts or less in Texas. So that's the state I know. I don't know all the other states, but that's the state I know. So as you talk through the power story, that's one of the biggest constraints. And then so you got to figure that out. So if you say you're an AI factory developer or those kinds of things, you got to work through all these power issues. It's going to take you years to get some of that kind of done. And you want redundancy. So you're going to have to build it on site. So, even smaller deployments, like if you did 10 megawatts or less, you're still looking at $100 million, $150 million to do a 10 megawatt site. Like that's, the build out, all the infrastructure you have around it, the redundancy and the power, the servers are about half of that, like if not more. So, it's not cheap. So, but it's a profitable situation. Most data centers are profitable because there's such demand. So power, talked about power. Okay. Now we're talking about cooling. So everything you're sticking inside of an AI factory is a GPU. And so it doesn't cool the same way. Most GPU deployments are being cooled with some sort of liquid cooling. And as the racks get denser, we're talking different kinds of liquid cooling. It's now immersion. So they stick them, in a bath full of water. And that might seem nonsensical because, anybody like way back, you remember way back in the day, like before, like the newer iPhones, like when you had a cell phone in like 1998 or 2000 and you accidentally dropped it in the toilet. And it fried, right? Your cell phone fried. And so it's like, but the electronics got better over time. You could drop it. I've dropped an AirPod in the pool and it was totally fine. So now this water thing is not an issue, but if you're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on servers and then you stick them in a bathtub, that like would probably cause my heart to sink. Like I'd be like, but they do. And immersion cooling, and it's interesting. And I'm like, well, how do they like switch out blades, or how do they take care of like, cables, and how does it, like, this fascinates me, the fact that they're doing immersion cooling and then they can maintain the servers. And they're like, oh yeah, we just like pick it up and then we change the stuff out and then we put it back in the bathtub. And I'm like, all right. I really want to see that in action, by the way. I really do. Anybody who watches the show and wants to show me how immersion cooling works, hit me up, man. I really, really want to see this. But as you're talking about cooling, that's where it has to go. Like there's everybody, I think, if I were to, this is all commentary, but like as I've been going to data center conferences, and even if you listen to the commentary over the last year, immersion cooling, like a year ago was, yeah, they like tried that way back in the day and it didn't work, right? That's where it's gone to now where it's like, pretty much that's where we got to go. So we got to figure it out because the rack densities are changing and they're getting more dense. I can't remember. So, like we were talking a year ago, talking about there were like the standard rack at a data center was 3 to 5 kilowatts. Like that was the standard rack. And now you're doing 30, 60, 90, like nuts on those sizes and the amount of power they're consuming, and what they're running at, and the amount of cables that are going through there. That's why I don't understand how immersion cooling works. So you've got like now 10x the cables. Like how are you, like, I'm an old GC. And so anytime you talk about water, the first thing I think of is going to leak. Like that's the first thing I think about. So I don't know how you're sticking a servers inside a bathtub of this solution to cool it off so it can run. And you've got cables everywhere and you got, like penetrations in that server. I don't get it. Like I know that there's really smart people and they're figuring it out, but this is apparently the way it has to go. And so keeping those from failing and keeping those servers cool is an issue. They'll overheat pretty quickly, and a lot faster than most. But liquid cooling is another one, and liquid cooling works too. Like they've kind of tested it out. It's solid, I think, at 30 kilowatts a rack, and then obviously at higher densities. But liquid cooling is they take like a tube and then they run it past the chip to cool it off. And so it's a tube. So even then I'm like, oh, it's a tube, it's water, it's next to a chip. Oh my God, it's going to leak. And they do. And I've heard that they do leak and you have to go fix it. But I'm still like, leaks, right? But it is super efficient. And so it is kind of the one way that they've kind of figured out to build these systems in a way to where you can cool them off and they can operate and at this level of density and power. And it becomes an interesting quandary, because now how it's changing the industry is that now it used to be back in the day, you had your building people, and they were your building people, and they managed all the HVAC equipment and all these other different things. And then you had your server people, and the server people managed it, or gray space and white space, whatever. Your server people manage the IT and all that other stuff. Well, now as that starts to integrate, right, because you have liquid cooling coming from a closed loop system that runs outside of the servers and then into the servers and then does all these things. That's what it does. It's like a radiator in a car. It's just circulating hot. It gets it's water. It goes away from the servers. It cools off. It comes back, and then it's hot in the servers, and it just keeps circulating. So that's how you keep your servers cool. That's what liquid cooling is. And it's not just water. It's like glycol and other things. But that causes a difference in the way the data centers operate, because now you've got this interesting intersection between the facilities people and the server people, and they have to work together. And they sound like they don't today, but work through some of those issues too. So I think it's an interesting time. AI factories will become a thing. I don't know who coined the term AI factory. I don't know who it is, but it's interesting. Basically, they are making AI. It's not. Are they making AI? They're supporting AI from happening. Like, you need to, my tech company is an AI company. We run on GPUs. We have to. We can't do anything else. I cannot run my stuff unless it's a GPU. Like, it just can't happen. So I'm not the only one. There are other AI companies out there that need GPUs. And so that enabling an AI, so it's an AI enablement center, not really a factory, but whatever. They're making AI, I guess. So those will become more and more prevalent as they come across. And the data center industry is now going through this flux, and it has been for a while, of figuring out how do we take the existing inventory of data centers and then flip it to where you can capture this AI business. And they maybe can't, or maybe they can. We don't know, because every site's different and you have different power availabilities. They've already got the fiber there, but it's the power, and can you upgrade the power at those existing facilities to manage what it is you need to manage? And sometimes you can, and sometimes you can't. Typically, they're connected to the grid. They're smaller sites. They probably don't have on-site power generation, right? So there's this game. But I think as we move forward, if I were to say one thing, as we kind of move forward, the AI factory becomes the economic development engine of a region. And we're working through studying this for sure. Data Center Coalition came out, and they partnered with PwC, and they did a study around workforce development. It was great. I've been looking for an article for this for a long time and haven't seen one. And they just came out one that was great. And I posted it out on LinkedIn for you. So if you go to my LinkedIn, please connect with me if we're not connected. My name's there, Amy Palvido. I love to connect with you. But there's an article, and it talks about, and for like the longest time I've been wanting, like, yes, the data center industry gets a bad rap because everybody says, well, yeah, you're going to create construction jobs, but once the data center is up and running, you don't have a lot of people working inside the data center, which comparatively for the size of the building is true. I mean, you can't compare it to manufacturing. It's just different. But there's jobs in the periphery that a data center supports. And I've wanted, like, God, I wish we had a study. And then, I don't know, maybe they're listening to me, or they wanted the same thing. It's great. So they did one. So for every data center job that is created, 6 more are created. So say you had 10 megawatt AI factory, you're going to have about roughly, I don't know, 8 employees there, something like that, 8 to 10. But multiply that by 6. So now you've got 50 other jobs that were created because you created that data center, which is so they're indirect, but it's definitely a boon to the industry. I think the data center gets a really bad rap about the job creation, and it's not true. And then not only that, the tax revenue obviously is there's so much money that comes in through an AI factory that the tax revenue that goes to the counties and the local development can be used for so many good things like affordable housing and, improving parks and improving roads and all these other stuff. So just by the tax revenue alone, that, if you think about Loudoun County, which is Data Center Alley, they have the best schools. I mean, they've been using that tax revenue in really good ways. So think of a data center. I don't want people to there's a bunch of people who hate data centers and the public perception of a data center is not good. And there needs to be this fight around what data centers are and what they do. They are economic development engines. And if you don't like one, then you're basically hurting your community, because there should be communities should be like, yes, we want a data center. Please come here. But there's this, these misconceptions about they steal all your power, they steal all your water, your utility bill is going to go up, all these other different things that aren't necessarily true. Have utility bills gone up? It's very, very interesting. It's a very, very interesting time. We can't necessarily they just contributed to data centers, but data centers are building out the grid now. So they're going to build the grid for themselves and they're going to use that power. And so technically they're not or should not be increasing your bill in any sort of way, because they're building the power for themselves. And it's definitely an interesting. So if you think through how an AI factory and this whole industry around AI and how it's going to improve a community, it's so crucial that communities don't do NIMBYism right now, because basically you're shooting yourself in the foot, because of the amount of money you could get as a county or a community to improve your schools and improve your housing, because a data center wants to locate there. And I think this will happen across, the AI factory thing is just getting started right now. Data centers are trying to figure out how to change kind of their existing ones, but we're going to have more and more AI, whether you believe in it or not. It's here to stay. It is out there to improve things. I am an AI company, so I fully believe in it. And I think that's a good thing. So we talked about power, we talked about cooling, we talked about how it's changing the industry, and we talked about how it's a boon for economic development. I think what we will see over time is more and more of these AI factories will appear. Because if you look at the number of AI deployments in enterprises, it's woefully low. And they really haven't deployed AI to as much. They're tinkering with it. They're piloting. If I were to take a look at enterprises as a whole, some they're saying they're doing AI, and I don't know what that means. But if you're looking at from an operational standpoint, AI hasn't been fully adopted at the enterprise level. And so once that happens, these AI factories are also going to be crucial. And I think most of these AI factories are basically going to be leased out by certain enterprises. So Visa is going to lease out an AI factory all by itself. And you'll have developers come out and develop AI factories for one enterprise, right? So, and that's, I'm sure Google and Microsoft are going, Amy, stop. But but I think a lot of people initially went to the cloud and are pulling away from the cloud and doing kind of some of their own enterprise developments. We'll see. Maybe Google's just building out stuff for Visa and MasterCard and whoever it is. Any enterprise that needs it. I think we'll see how that changes over time and what happens with as these deployments proliferate, which they will, as they proliferate, what happens to the traditional data center? Because those needs will still be there. I don't think those go away either. I think you're going to have needs for storage, which the traditional data centers kind of do, and not so much hosting of sites, some. But I think this whole AI factory thing it's not an either or. I think the existing data centers stay where they are. They're still profitable. They've been providing a service for a long time. And then I think you have these in addition to, and it builds a more well-rounded, data center portfolio. So I haven't looked at it yet. And I think there should be a study on the differences on the employment side between a traditional data center and an AI factory. I don't think that's been looked at yet. That would be a really good research thing to see, because I think the AI factories tend to hire more. That's my total guess. They're hiring more people than a traditional data center would. But I could be completely wrong. I'm willing to admit that I might be wrong. So anyway, this has been fun. This is the week before Thanksgiving. I am so glad you're watching my show. Next week is Thanksgiving, and I will have a show up. I'm not sure. I'm not going to ask anybody to come on the show. So it might be me. I might be bored on Thanksgiving, so I might come out. And if y'all, want to come on the show, I'd love to have you. If you're in the data center industry and would like to come on my show, that would be great. Please hit me up on LinkedIn. And then, so next week, I'm debating. If not, I'll have a rerun of a previous show. But the following week, you need to come see us because we've got some really cool guests lined up for December and talking about all sorts of things in the industry, trying to get some more enterprise folks to come on. And hopefully, I'm not going to announce them yet, but I'll announce them hopefully as they come on. But chief AI officers at different enterprises, getting them to come on the show. So we can talk about more things. And then a lot of my buddies were at Supercompute. That just happened last week. I heard it was a great show. I was not there, but that's okay. I don't have to go to everyone. But yeah, if you have more questions about the data center industry, I think most people watch my show because I'm such a data center 101 person. And I try to be real about it. But if you have questions about the data center industry or, my company or what's going on, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn. I don't mind. I'll answer as many questions as I can. I'm a busy girl though. And if you have questions about the PropTech Council, please go to proptechcouncil.com. We are the trade association for the real estate technology industry. So, and this is a show of the PropTech Council. And it's been pleasure yakking at you for I can't believe I made it for 30 minutes, but I did. I could yak forever. Talk. Y'all have a blessed Thanksgiving. I hope all of you, I'm grateful for all of you who come and watch the show. And, just enjoy your families. That's always a good thing. Enjoy your families. This is the time of year we get to do that. And I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one, y'all.